I think when you look at case of apparition, right, you will see that there are certain vulnerabilities, right, that have been repeated like multiple times. But someone finds that particular vulnerability, they apply a patch. That patch doesn't work. Someone looks at that particular code again, exploits it again, and gets a CV assigned for them. Right. So that's another thing you have to keep in mind. The next thing is you need to target input points. But if you want to corrupt the system, right, or take charge of the system, one of the very essential you need to look at is input points. Right? Because you can't hack something, you can't feed information. Right? The next thing you want to look at is tracing data flow. So once you do that input points, right, you want to trace data flow and see whether data is impact some maybe function that makes it vulnerable or something like that. And then the last thing is you should leverage automation, right? I'm going to talk about this later on, but just keep it in mind, you need to leverage automation because it helps us, especially when we are looking for vulnerabilities in programs that are really large. Okay. Okay, so what are some of the techniques that you can use to discover vulnerabilities in software? So for the repository that I talked about, you can do a code search for vulnerable code patterns, right? For example, I don't know if you guys know about render template string in Python. Right? That particular function has already been declared to be unsafe, right? So you can do a GitHub code search looking for strings like that, like in open source project. And then you get a list of maybe projects that are using the render template string in there. Then you can start doing your research and trying to see whether you can get the program to behave in an unexpected way. Another thing you can use is also to leverage SAS tools. When we talk about SAS tools, they are basically static analysis tools. Right? You just statically analyze the code and then try to identify which is the code. Now, some examples of these static analysis tools, we have SendGrep. I'll be doing a demonstration showing Sneak. Right? So when we see another thing you want to keep in mind is if you want to be able to break the application, you need to set it up. Right? Go to test for that. It is multiple times before even submitting it to get assigned. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is patch lifting. Patch lifting is a very interesting concept, right? So with patch lifting, you are looking at software, like an older version of the software, and you are looking at patch that has been worked out, or a new version of a newer version of that particular software. And then you are comparing the difference between the code bases, right? Now, by doing that, you are able to see maybe probably vulnerabilities that were patched, right, in the earlier or the newer version. Now, this is still important because people still use the old version of software. Using patch lifting or doing patch lifting can help you to be able to identify vulnerabilities that's going to be patched. Right? When we talk about patch lifting, it also helps us to develop experience. Talk about that later. Some of the things you can keep in mind when you're hunting for vulnerabilities. So first thing is you want to prioritize impact. You want to find vulnerabilities that have high impact or have some sort of impact. You want to prioritize those kind of vulnerabilities. The second thing is that you need to combine automation and manual review. Because automation
cannot always give you the desired results, right? So as much as you are using automated tools, you also have to do some manual review. Okay, so now that we have gone through the process of identifying a vulnerability, how exactly do we get a CV assigned to our vulnerability, right? The first thing and most important thing is what we've talked about, right? First of all, you need to discover and reproduce the vulnerability. The second thing is you want to document the finding, right? Because in later steps, you would have to contact the vendor about and inform them about that particular vulnerability. And you need documentation to be able to explain. And for the vendor themselves to be able to reproduce that vulnerability and verify that it exists in that software, right? And then the next thing is you need to identify the proper CNE or vendor, right? So you need to identify the proper vendor for that particular software. If you find a vulnerability in Microsoft software, you need to know the vendor name, right? And then after knowing which particular vendor produces that software, right, you can contact the vendor right? So you contact the vendor, you do a responsible disclosure, you tell them about the vulnerability, and then you agree on a timeline for them to be able to fix that particular vulnerability. Right. Now, after doing all this, you can now request a CVE ID from a CNA or a vendor. Now, CNAs are just CVE numbering authorities. That's assigned CVEs, right? So you can request a CVE, right? And then some of the things that you need to request a CVE is that the documentation prove that that particular vulnerability exists and all that. And then you coordinate timelines. Then finally, the CVE record is published. It's created and published. In some cases, they could even reference you as like the person who discovered that particular vulnerability in the software. Yeah, so that's it for discovering CVEs or discovering vulnerabilities. Now, the second part of the presentation talks about POCs, developing POCs, that's proof of concept or exploits for known vulnerability flaws, right? Now, a lot of people use POC and exploits interchangeably, but they are two different things, right? POCs basically help to verify that that particular vulnerability exists, right? But then exploits have some particular mission. They have some particular payload that they would execute or they would do on their target machine after exploiting that vulnerability. Yeah. So basically, what are exploits, right? Now, an exploit it could be a piece of code, right? It could be a script or a technique that takes advantage of a vulnerability in a system, right? And helps attackers to achieve their own desires. So the next thing is, why should we exploit? Like, why should we exploit vulnerabilities? One of the most important reasons is writing an exploit for a vulnerability. It proves that that particular vulnerability actually exists in the system, right? And then it helps to validate fixes, right? So when you report the vulnerability, they try the exploit on the vulnerability, it works. Then they bring out a patch. And after bringing out a patch, they rerun the exploit scripts on that particular application to test if that particular vulnerability still exists, right? And some of the other points are it improves overall defenses, right? By revealing detection and mitigation gaps. And then finally, it highlights critical risks to prioritize remediation efforts. Okay, I'm going to be snappy with this one because I have only 20 minutes. So what exactly should we target when we want to do exploit development? Right? We can target CVEs that don't have public exploits, right? Because sometimes certain CVEs are assigned, but they don't have exploits, right? And as a penetration tester, in some cases, you would want to, like, you would be testing maybe an application. You realize that this particular application is vulnerable to this particular attack, right? But there's no public exploit for you to test and verify that vulnerability. So this is one important reason. By writing exploits, you are contributing to the security community. You are helping other penetration testers and defenders to be able to find and remediate vulnerabilities. Okay. So I've already spoken about why we should target CVs without exploits. I think we can move on to the next slide. How to craft an exploit, right? So for certain vulnerabilities, right, you want to first start off with the advisory, right? Because the advisory gives you information about what the vulnerability is, right? And then the next thing is you locate the vulnerable code. So sometimes in the advisory, right, they place commit hashes in there that link to where exactly the vulnerable code is, right? So you can read that advisory, you locate the vulnerable code, right? Understand the code and try to see how you can exploit that particular code. The next thing is once you figure out how to exploit that vulnerability, you can analyze it and then reproduce it safely. And then lastly, you can automate it, document it, and then disclose it. Right? But you have to be very careful about disclosing exploits because as much as it can be used by penetration testers, it can also be used by the bad guys. Right? So you make sure that you release exploits for vulnerabilities that have already been patched. Okay. So I think that is it for my presentation. I'm not sure if there would be time for questions. And okay. So yeah, so you can see me later on. If you have any questions, right, and if you also want to see the demonstration, I really wanted to show the demonstration, but time won't permit me. So I guess that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel Ni Ayi Adefiu. A better round of applause for him. We'll take our last presentation for the day, and he will be taking us to the the automation ready SOC, a blueprint for future-proof security operations. And Mr. Please, can we all breathe in? And clap for me, okay? Would have gone through another presentation again, which has already been done. So, he is going to take us through enhancing cybersecurity in Ghana's public sector, the imperative of zero trust architecture. And to do us the honors is Mr. Clemens Sedem Agozi. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for him. He's just going to do 15 minutes and we'll be done. So please clap, last this thing.
Okay. It says
Yes, the slides I gave you. Yeah, PDFs I gave you. There was one being it. Actually, I'll show you back to the slide was. The slide one was it. No, it's your no. Doesn't share PDF in way of right. Well, enhances cybersecurity. Okay. Enhances cybersecurity. Yeah. It's a look up. Yeah. That's what it was. See. Some moments numbers. Some moments. More feeling. That's right. What's up? You play to the same. Okay. What did it? Oh. Selection. This the wonders that like a screen. So only that.
Yeah, injected. So this afternoon I'll be taking us to enhance the topic class to enhancing cybersecurity.
Ghana's public sector, the imperative of zero trust architecture. Since our topic is defending Ghana's digital sovereignty, we need to protect our data and our sovereignty as a whole. Next slide, please. Okay, so a brief about me. My name is Clemens Sedemagozi. I'm a software engineer and a cybersecurity analyst who is also picking interest in digital forensics as well. My current certifications, I'm ISO 27001 lead auditor. I'm also a certified threat intelligence analyst. Then I have certified AppSec practitioner, that's for application security. I'm currently a candidate of CISSP and PNPT. The reason why you saw CISSP and PNPT is because I have two mentors. One is into GRC, the other is into offensive security, and they both want me to get certification before June next year, so pray for me. That's, yeah. And I also adjunct at UPSA. I take courses like information system security, programming, and introduction to information technology as well. Okay. Now, Ghana as a whole, we have been on a journey of digitalization, right? We have things like Ghana.gov, we have e-procurement, we have e-health for our public hospitals. They are all digitalized, right? And we have systems in place. These systems run on networks, right? Then we also have e-justice facilities. Now, all this preaching that we've been hearing every day on digitalization, we are doing this, we are doing that. What do we think it is posing to us? What are some of the dangers? What are some of the risks that it is posing to us? In as much as they help us do our work, they help us go on our daily activities well, they also pose what? Some risks. So the public infrastructure faces heightened cyber threats and digital expansion. So when Mr. Seshi was presenting, he was like, the public sector recorded the highest, right? Above 30% of breach. So it means the public sector is the main target, even though the private sector is also there. So now protecting these platforms is very critical to prevent disruption. Not just only disruption, but also what? Your data. Data makes us who we are. Data about you and I make us a whole and what we do. Okay, now cybersecurity resilience is essential for sustaining trusted government. So how will you trust government? It's not about just government has made a promise and they have fulfilled it. How are they keeping you safe? Because they monitor our cyberspace. They have data about you. How are they using it for you to trust them? Now, the cybersecurity landscape in Ghana and Africa as a whole, let's just take a brief look at it. Now, global rise in cyber attacks targeting public institutions for theft, ransomware, and espionage. Now, globally, then the war is no more about guns and bombs, even though recently, just in few years, we've seen guns, bullets flying around, but the main war is data, right? So countries are spying on each other. Government data is being targeted. We heard a rumor somewhere 2018 that the African Union headquarters built by China for Africa was bagged, where there were recorders in the building. Every meeting our African leaders were having was being recorded. I don't know how true is that. Even though China came out to deny it, but our African leaders also said there was a forensic and they were able to retrieve some of these devices. China needed that information about African leaders. That's why whatever you do, any discussion our leaders had, China always have a tailored solution for it. Like, for example, have you ever imagined most of us, when we live here today, by the time we get to our various places, you go on your social media, especially Facebook, you have suggestions, right? It's data around you. It's all about data around you. Then Africa public sector targeted for valuable data and general weaker defenses. And most of the times, our defense is more on physical defense, the military, okay? But now that our war is all about data, I think we need to take a look at our cyberspace. Now, Ghana affected by cyber incident disrupting financial services, local government, and critical national system. Just somewhere this year, there was a breach at MTN and the rest. Even one of the videos that have been played, I saw the headline like that, where about over 5,000 customer data got leaked. It's not just only at the private sector. Things happen in public sector as well. Data gets leaked and your information will be taken out. So what do we need to do? There is an urgent need for modern security architecture to safeguard public assets and ensure service continuity. So we already have security defense mechanisms, but now since the attackers are also coming up with modern ways of attacking you, you should also look forward for modern architecture to secure your information system. Now, we know of the perimeter defense. That's the traditional one, mostly based on our network. So we tend to secure our network in such a way that we put in firewalls, VPNs, and the rest. Now, what are the limitations? Now, the traditional cybersecurity relies on castle of moat. Now, when we say castle of moat, this is a traditional cybersecurity mechanism where the security of your information system is mainly based on network. Now, the castle refers to the network that is within your organization, and the moat refers to the mechanism put in place, the firewalls, the VPNs. Now, it is believed that in the castle of moat, once you are in the network, you are verified in the network, you are trusted. So what it simply means is every request coming from an IP that is identified as part of the network is green. You can go ahead and do whatever you want to do. So when an attacker finally compromises a device and gets into the system, then is able to obtain an IP and makes a request, the system trusts that attacker's request. So that's one of the limitations. Once breached, attackers move laterally. So the moment an attacker gets into the system, there is a lateral movement where privilege escalation takes place. And we all know the highest permission we want to get, the root permission, right? So that you can do everything and be free and move forward. So once you are able to compromise that mechanism, the firewall, the VPNs, and get into the network, you are good. The next thing is lateral movement, where you will be able to get a higher privilege to be able to do what you want to do. Now, insider threat also. Another limitation is insider threat shared credentials and remote work expand the attack surface. Now, most of the times, people share credentials in an organization. I once entered a government institution. I wanted something badly. The person who was supposed to attend to me said she was going for lunch. But I needed that. And she was the only one with that privilege at the time at post. Others were not around. So what she did was, she gave a credential to someone else. I knew it was wrong, but because I also needed the thing fast, I kept quiet. So I also contributed to that breach. I knew it was wrong for her to share the credentials, but I kept quiet because it was going to favor me. Do you get it? Now, so that is another way, something that has actually one limitation. And also, remote work is few now. A lot of people say, well, let's use VPN to connect to our system and the rest. Now, the more you do remote work. A lot of us work from public places. We go for coffee shops and start working, connect to a cafe network and start working. It has also contributed to that. Now, the traditional parameter is becoming irrelevant, demanding new security paradigms without implicit trust. So with the traditional mechanism, there is an implicit trust, which means the moment you are inside the network, you are trusted. So you are a worker in the Flagstaff house, so you are trusted. You can move anywhere, even though it's not like that there. You can't move anywhere. So even in our information system, we should make sure it's not like that. Okay? Now, in cybersecurity today, the network perimeter no longer exists. So it actually doesn't exist, mostly in the private sector. But some exist in the government institutions because we are actually doing politics with certain things. I will say it as it is. We do politics a lot with a lot of things. Now, the introduction of ZTA, or Zero Trust Architecture, what is it about? So this is actually a cybersecurity model that eliminates implicit trust. So it means this model says, don't trust anybody, okay? And when you adopt ZTA, it's strengthening security. So what is the first principle? It says what? Never trust, always verify. So no implicit trust based on location or ownership. Now, no matter who you are in a ZTA environment, no matter who you are, you must always be verified for every single request you make. Whether you are already in the network or you have been in the network for ages, it is always verification. First, identify yourself. With identify yourself, the information system or the authentication service actually authenticates you. After authenticating, there is authorization checking. They check whether you are also actually authorized to access whatever you are trying to access at that point. If it is green, then they allow you go through. For even your device that you are using to access, the device you are using must also be verified. And there is what? Now, assume breach scenarios to proactively defend against attacks. This is another principle. What it simply means is the information system or our system is designed in such a way that we are always thinking as if we have been compromised already. So we are working as if some bad person is already in our system. So we are always guarding ourselves. We don't wait till we are compromised before we react. We do what we call proactive. So we are always guarding ourselves. And there is what? Enforce least privilege access. Now, least privilege access is one of the security principles that says that give users only the access they need to perform their duty. So if your duty is to just go and read transactions, no extra permissions. That's about least privileges. So you go to some organization, one person have a lot of privileges. No, this principle says what? This ZTA says what? Give what? The minimum permission, the minimum privilege that is needed for someone or a system to do their daily work. That is what it means. Then we also have continuous verification and monitoring. It doesn't end there. So it means there is constant verification. So you log in today, you want to access something, it starts from the beginning to verify you. You don't get verified only once. When you get verified the first time, the next request you make, it passes through the same process. So there is constant verification and monitoring, okay? Now, this shifts security from parameter defense to granular context-aware security control. So instead of us putting all our security at the network level, just like putting a strong door at our gate or in front of our house that nobody can break into it, but when it is finally broken, the person gets in, the person has access to anything. This one says what? No. Even though we have the strongest gate at the main gate, every single seat you are coming to, there is a door, and you need a key. You need to identify yourself that you are actually the one designated for that seat. Every seat has a key to log in. That's what it means. Now, what's the outcome? It enhances resilience against sophisticated cyber attack. I'm being notified my time is up. I've not even done 5%. Now, why do we need zero trust in Ghana public sector? Now, Ghana public sector institutions hold vast sensitive citizen and national data. which increases cyber attack. NIA, right? Your Ghana card data. You have your tax data by GRA. All public, even ECG has your data. Like all public institutions actually have your data, SNIT and the rest. They have your information. And that actually results to people or bad guys trying to have access to their system so that they can get information about you. Okay? Now, growing interagency integrations. Now, because we are in the era of digitalization in Ghana, institutions are connecting into each other. You know, there is something called third-party risk. So NIA is the custodian of our Ghana card data. Institutions want to connect to NIA data and verify us for any transactions that we do. Okay? Now, when that happens, that institution trying to connect becomes a third party to NIA. Now, NIA may have their system secured, but what about the institution coming in? So this is a holistic approach. In as much as NIA is trying to protect its territory, whoever that is accessing it must also make sure it is. So since all our agencies are trying to integrate into each other, there should be a holistic approach to all public sectors so that we can implement what we call zero trust architecture. Now, there is insider threats. So, like I said earlier, there are insiders, people who are not happy, someone belongs to party A, someone belongs to party B, may try to sabotage something. It's happening, even in private sector, it's happening. Now, zero trust architecture enforces strict access control. Now, access control has to do with permissions, what you can do and what you cannot do in the information system, okay? Now, this architecture emphasizing on what we call access control. Mostly, it preaches role-based access control, even though there are other ones, but it preaches role-based access control where users are grouped into roles and assigned permissions. So if you don't have that permission, you will not be able to access certain parts of the information system for you to be able to get access to information you are not supposed to have access to. Now, ZTA aligns with Ghana's Cybersecurity Act. Now, the Act 1038 preaches about what? Securing PII, personally identified information. Now, ZTA enhances that, or ZTA helps achieve that. So ZTA is already in alignment with the legal framework that governs our cyberspace. So if you are implementing ZTA, just know that you are already in alignment with Act 1038. And finally, adopting ZTA improves overall cybersecurity posture and digital public assets. So if you adopt ZTA, your cybersecurity posture rating increases, and at least, even though users are inside, that you need to train, but putting up a ZTA will help us. Now, one of the frameworks that help us achieve ZTA is the NIST 800-275, 800-207. So this is a zero trust architecture framework by NIST. Okay. Now, these are the core components. There is policy engine, which makes dynamic access decisions based on policies. So policy engine actually has to do with permissions. Okay. Okay. There is access decisions to be made. A is coming in. Does he have access to that? Is he permitted to do that? And there are also what we call PEP or PEP, policy enforcement. Now, enforces access control. At the policy engine level, we define the access. We define it in terms of policies. At the PEP level, that is when it is enforced. Okay? It is enforced by the technical guys. Then finally, we also have identity management. This ensures entities are authenticated and are compliant with the foundation. So even every entity that is trying to use our system, users, humans, other systems, other programs, other processes, even devices, your browser that you are using, everything needs to be authenticated and verified to make sure they conform. So you will realize that there are certain applications, certain versions of your browsers cannot actually access them. So there are certain networks you can't try to access. You can't come on that network with Windows SP. Yes. So these are some of the ways to implement what we call ZTA. Now, there is also policy administrator. Now, this communicate access decision to enforcement point. So now, when the policies are defined, the administration communicated to the enforcement point, and also there is a continuous diagnostic, continuous monitoring, continuous improvement, and the rest. I think we are almost there. Okay, so like I've spoken about this already. The first tenet is verify explicitly, no trust, there is least privilege, there is assumed breach. We are always thinking that we have already been compromised, so let's always fight whatever it is that is inside our system already. There's continuous validation, continuous verification. Now, these principles collectively enhance security by minimizing trust assumption and the rest. Okay, so this is also another model. It's called the CISA Zero Trust Maturity Model. Because of time, I'll just go through. If you have any question, you can see me after here. So we have identity, we have data, we have application, we have device, then we have the network environment. Okay, I'll just go through fast. So these are the levels. So we have the traditional level, initial level, advanced level, optimal level. But I can say the Ghanaian, the public sector is at the initial level. So you see, these are the levels. At the traditional level, where we have the parameter, firewalls. Now, at the initial level, we have basic segmentation and multi-factor authentication and the rest. That's where we are as a country. That's where we are. Even though people are at the optimal level, where they are automating security, we are still at MFA. Do you get it? We've not even got into advanced. At the private sector is at the advanced, but the public sector, I'm not sure. Private sector, because of the regulations, and it is funny, the regulations are by the government, but most of the government institutions are not actually complying. They are mostly on the private sector. So I can tell you for a fact, because I've been at the bank before, so the private sector is especially fintechs, banks, insurance, and the rest are at the advanced level. So these are just the comparison and the rest. So I can share this with you. I don't have problem. As a teacher, I share slides every day. So let's move on. Now, this is the roadmap that I am proposing for Ghana public sector. The identity-centric, there is number 2, network monetization, there is continuous, number 3 is continuous monitoring, data protection. I think we have data protection commission and the rest, and the governance and policy. I think I will end here because I'm being signaled continuously. You can see me after here, then I will share the slides with you. You know, it's not my fault. As a teacher, I prepare a lot of slides, so maybe this one is too much. Thank you very much.
Can we do it better for Clemens? He really came prepared. All too soon, we are drawing down curtains on today's opening session, and we would like to take some closing remarks from Ms. Nina Kole. She is the Associate Director, Cybersecurity Strategy and Transformation at Deloitte. Ms. Kole, if you're here, let's have you for the closing remarks.
Distinguished guests, partners, colleagues, and participants. As we draw the curtain on the first day of the Break the Code, Capture the Flag 2025, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to all speakers, panelists, organizers, and attendees for your active engagement and insightful contribution. Today's sessions have highlighted the critical importance of collaboration across government, industry, and academia in defending Ghana digital space. The thought-provoking panel discussion expert presentation has set a strong foundation for the days ahead, inspiring us all to push the boundaries of innovation and resilience in cybersecurity. At Deloitte, we are very proud to support BRCTF 2025 to nurture the next generation of cybersecurity experts, foster technical excellence, and build a robust digital ecosystem. Initiatives like this are very critical in equipping our youth and professionals with practical skills and strategic mindsets needed to address evolving cyber threats and safeguard our digital future. As we look forward to the CTF competition and further knowledge sharing, let us continue to collaborate, learn, and share knowledge. By breaking the code, we are not only solving technical, but also unlocking new opportunities for growth, security, and prosperity for Ghana and the wider region. Thank you once again for your participation and commitment. For all our competitors for tomorrow, starting from tomorrow, we wish you all the best. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Ms. Goli. And so we'd like to take some quick announcements from Ms. Sarah Okumoso. Let's welcome her with a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Madam MC. Good afternoon once again, and we'll take a few announcements, and then we wrap up from here. First of all, we really appreciate you staying behind throughout, and we apologize for the delay. So, as we all know, BRCTF is a 3-day program, today being the cyber conference and panel talks. And then now, tomorrow, we begin the CTF challenge, and then we stay throughout the night. So the challenge is 24 hours plus. There's some extra bit to it. So we'll stay for 24 hours and some few more hours tomorrow. And then we end the competition tomorrow around 11:59 on the dot. And then we have the awards and closing ceremony. So finalists, please take note. Grab your shirts right after the program. You go to the, I think on my right, sitting on your left, you go to that section and then grab your t-shirts. Tomorrow we begin at 8 a.m. Breakfast is 8 a.m. on the dot. So kindly remind your colleagues who are not here to be present on time, because we'll begin the session, opening session at 9 a.m. on the dot. We'll be having some remarks from the Cybersecurity Authority as well, and then the BRCTF team. Those of you who requested for accommodation, kindly wait behind after the conference. Okay. I know you wanted more of the talks and sessions, so BRCTF has an initiative we call the Buy Time Sessions. We hold a monthly expert presentation online, so kindly do well to follow Buy Time Sessions on all the social media platforms. Tomorrow we'll also be streaming the competition. We'll be having Red versus Blue Team events, so we'll be streaming it online, so you can follow all the social media platforms. It's at BRCTF Ghana, and kindly share with your friends, your colleagues back at school to watch you compete. Yeah. And finally, we want to appreciate our sponsors, our partners. First of all, the Cybersecurity Authority, our institutional partner for BRCTF 2025. We really, really appreciate you. The Ministry of Education has been a sponsor from since 2023. So we really appreciate the Ministry of Education for their commitment and dedication to supporting BRCTF, and most especially this year, the CENDULOS, the Center for National Digital Learning and Open Schooling. Also, EcoCTF, who've been partners with BRCTF from the very beginning. They are the platform providers for BRCTF, so we want to say a very big thank you to EcoCTF, located all the way in Greece. OFSEC as well, also partners with BRCTF since 2023. They've provided the opportunity for our winning teams to take the OSCP certification, so we want to continue to appreciate them. Deloitte Ghana, being partners of BRCTF 2025. So Deloitte is partnering with BRCTF to offer internship opportunities for our players this year. So thank you very much, Deloitte. I think they deserve a very big round of applause. Would also want to appreciate Dynamic Data Solutions, also being returning sponsors of BRCTF. And this year we also have Hack for Good. So please kindly watch out from next year. Hack for Good and BRCTF will be bringing out more exciting activities. Yeah, and then also Resolve Systems Ghana Limited, the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, our media partners, Kweku Tech, and then finally want to appreciate all our CTF finalists. To the organizing partners, Data Systems, Obolos Tech, Direct Warranty, and DACO Institute, we also say a very big thank you. So lunch is ready, so kindly go to the bag, grab your lunch. Tomorrow, finalists, we begin at 8 a.m. Breakfast is at 8 a.m., so we'll be there. Thank you very much, and we wish you a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Music.
Please, lunch. You can do it.
You don't get what's we do the wonder from Lady. They get it all. Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh. I didn't know how we go. Maybe need to go. Oh, if you get some of them, for the
I'll be like 25. Like,
you closed.
can you fix the data thing on your
So just, I'm sure it's an update thing. Just update, you're fine.
but you do it so
Okay.
because the laptop is
My charger. I beg, but you'll be normal. Yeah, why no? In fact, by the connection.
the food is here. Like I'm not gonna show everything. So just full the come.
I am up.
That's what come up. You keep it here tomorrow.
Okay. Ladies. Okay. You don't have a problem. Lumbia.
Come on,
Cable. That's one. Which way you doing?
yeah.
Yeah, my name is.
Like you have to remove this and put it. You have to put it in his one.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get a song that. I love you.